Welcome back to the Oblivious Maximus podcast. I'm one of two hosts, Aaron. With me as regularly as he can be is...
Ben Searle.
Here he is.
The other host. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, love being here with you.
But today we are joined by Luka Muller.
Yeah,
How you doing?
It was you. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. You've taken some time out of Triple J breakfast to come chat to us.
Yep.
And your stand-up life. How are things going?
I mean, yeah, but a hard question to answer, but in general, good. I'm ducking back to Melbourne now after starting on Triple J breakfast 4 months ago or something like that. And it's been hectic.
Yeah.
And like so much fun stuff that you do, but it's nuts. You have to move to Sydney and all of a sudden you wake up at 4 a.m. every day and your whole life changes and you don't even know who you are anymore.
How is the early wake up?
I've gotten more used to it for sure. Now that I'm a few months into it, I feel aware. It just felt like for those first few months, there's just like a fucking guillotine hanging over your head where you're like, get into the afternoon, you're like, how much energy do I have? How am I feeling? Can I go out tonight? What should I have for dinner? Do I just need to lay on the couch? If I stay out past 9 o'clock, it's just going to ruin the rest of my week.
Because you're still trying to do some gigs at night and stuff as well.
Yeah. All right. I've settled into probably a pretty comfortable, maybe like 2 or 3 a week, which feels like a good balance. But that first month I was going psycho, and because I just moved there, all these bookers, like, it was nice. They were like, oh, come and do my gig, you're new in town. And I could never say no to anything, because it's like, I mean, it's that's stand up for as long as you ever do it. You're like, well,
Scarcity mindset.
Exactly, yeah. I better say yes to every single thing, otherwise what if I disappear or something?
Yeah.
And
what if I'm forgotten?
if I take a week off, I'm just going to fall out of their minds.
Yeah.
I'll be erased from all the photos.
How is it fight? Like, I mean, obviously you would have, done stand up in Sydney before in the past, but how is it sort of moving into a completely new arrangement for yourself?
It's a change for sure. And even like last night, I just did Basement and Republic and stuff, like gigs that I've done heaps down here. And I noticed that I've already, even though there's sort of bigger gigs and there's a lot of people, can be a little bit nerve-wracking maybe. I felt a lot more comfortable on those stages even straight away than I do at like pretty much any gig I've done in Sydney. Just just like, repetition on the same spots or something like that. So settling into it for sure, but it's different. I miss Melbourne. I do.
Yeah.
Even though I'm having a good time, it's going well. I miss Melbourne.
Well, the scene up there is good, but it's just not as big as Melbourne is. And I guess for a while there during COVID, they were kind of matching it. But I think, I don't know what it is, Melbourne just seems to have more gigs and maybe some of them have no one at them. But there's sheer numbers where we're on top.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the other thing too, it's the same with like music and stuff. It's like, I think the one, grief point that Sydney has with all this is like, it's kind of hard to get around. So and that makes it very difficult to do like creative pursuits or be a punter going to those things.
Totally. Where you realize part of what's good about Melbourne, or I don't know, somewhere like Fitzroy or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, there's, 10 venues within a fucking 20-minute walk of each other.
Yeah.
Like, where that just does not exist anywhere really.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think the other thing too, just like the classic, oh, you can catch the bus. And I'm like, yep. And then you're just in the same traffic that you would otherwise be in a bigger thing.
Yeah, guys. Sydney, Melbourne, they're a bit fucking different, these two cities, I reckon. I don't know what it's all about.
Men v women. Or even bigger, cat v dog.
That's what we get people in here. Sort this shit out.
Yeah, it's sort of like a four corners sort of setup down here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the moving or the area that I live in or just the hours or something, but the two biggest changes I've noticed, I just go for a big walk in the afternoon now because I'm very conscious, like, make sure you're still, moving your bod around so you don't fall apart. But I just walk around for like 2-3 hours almost every afternoon now. I never thought that would be a fixture in my life. It's like I'm a retiree. I don't know, just lost in the world.
You are a retiree. You get up at 4 a.m. You walk around for ages.
Yeah.
Go to bed at 9, start the day again.
Well, it is like whenever I've had a job where I've had to get up early, it just rules your life.
Yeah.
I think like, and rightly so. It's probably the main thing you're doing. So why wouldn't you kind of like set your life up like that? But it is like, that feeling of like, I'm awake still. I got to be asleep.
Yeah. I think for a while I thought I'd have pretty much the same life, but a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Where now I'm like, oh no, my whole life's got to be different for sure. Yeah.
Well, and stand-up life is so late night.
Yeah.
And
we're night owls. We're creatures of the evening. Us freaky deaky fellas.
Dinner at 11 p.m.
Bloody China bar, you open? I hope so. I'm coming. Didn't you go there 2 nights ago?
Yeah. And really heaped on the crispy chili, and boy, did I regret it the next day.
Did you end up finding somewhere to have rice last night?
I didn't. I ordered. We were at Comedy Republic last night. I was fiending for I was so tempted to go back to China Bar.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I will probably get it tonight.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to a 40th and then doing a gig where I'll get free piss at both. So fried rice is in my future.
Shit.
But I did order a burrito when I got home.
That's so decent.
Yeah.
One time when I was dog sitting for Reese and Kyron, and they were living out in Coburg at the time, and I hopped on after a late night, hopped on the Uber Eats to suss my options. And there was like a kebab shop that was offering all your usual fare, some kebabs, some goslemis, some HSPs. But then they had a HSP where the chips were replaced with rice.
I've been seeing this.
Yeah.
I've been seeing this.
They're exploring the Asian continent.
Yeah. Oh, you like rice, do you?
Is it? I was like, is it like a health thing? Like
that's what it felt like.
Rice is pretty carby.
Yeah, it's just as bad as potato.
That's what I thought, and so I ordered it, thinking I reckon I'm onto a healthy option here. And then I reckon it made me feel worse than any chips ever have.
Yeah, it's almost like is that a dish in itself? Like, because the HSP.
But it's
is
kind
an
of
invented food. Like it's like it's not a cultural food.
No, but it's kind of like that spice bag.
Yes.
Like how they're dumping fried rice, chips, chicken. Like
it's neo food culture.
Yeah.
It's evolving in the late night dens.
I do love the concept of the spice bag. And then on the recent UK trip, kind of had missed the curry chips, like the curry sauce of the chips, and then this time it fully got me.
Dominated your existence.
Ass.
Oh yeah, it's sick.
so good.
It's unreal shit, hey.
Yeah, and just having that like spicy salt on chips, a genius concept. Those Irish really
they know how to get pissed.
There's that place down in St Kilda, and they take bookings, and they're just like Siobhan, Aoife. Like, it's just all the names on the table. Just
Well, they picked the right place in Melbourne to put the restaurant.
100%.
They all live down there.
You open one in St Kilda, one in Bondi, sorted.
Oh yeah, huge.
They love it there.
Man, you did well to pull a second Irish name. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm on Tinder. Nah, it's a bit of fun.
We love the Irish.
Well, that our old work was a childcare place.
Yeah,
full of Irish.
Yeah, I kind of started it there. Well, I didn't start it, but I was like, I helped permeate it through because I was like, I was working in the ops team, and I was like, we need more staff. And then one Irish woman there was like, oh, we all have teaching degrees and we're all working in Coles and nannying and shit, and we're all just trying to get into working in education. And I was like, tell all your friends to come work here. And then within like 6 months, half the ops team and like the head office is all
nice
Irish teachers who are like the loveliest people ever and so down to like do any work. So
man, that's so good. What another win for Australian immigration policies. We're taking all these super qualified people and making them do a bunch of bullshit.
Man.
Although I did clock this like Irish podcast a little while ago, and they were talking about how like, going to Australia is such a big thing. Go there, get a house deposit, and then go back to Ireland. And they're like, oh, now that's not a thing because it's so fucking expensive here.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was such a big part of their culture. I guess part of it is like go work in the mines or come teach here or something.
Well, and all of them, I mean, I think you have to do this. You have to do that like rural working stuff. So a ton of them go and do those like fruit picking jobs or whatever. But now those are getting really hounded because people are like, weird. They're finding out like random farmers in Australia like, actually, we're going to pay you nothing and you're going to sleep in the shed.
Yeah.
And the living conditions are a nightmare. And now you get to hang out in fucking beautiful Toowoomba.
Yeah. Well, now they've moved it to like you can just work in a cafe in Geelong. Like that's considered like rural work.
Oh, whoa. I just came back from Vietnam and I was doing this like tour one day and ended up with like this American lady and then this French guy. And the French guy had been to Australia before and done the like fruit picking thing. And I was like, oh, did you have to do that? Where did you do it? Blah, 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 whatever. And so then the American lady didn't know it was a thing. So we got to like tell her about that that exists and that's a system. And she could not believe her fucking ears. She was blown away. She was like, so you have to go far from the city and work on a farm for fuck all money in order to get a visa? Like, yeah. It's pretty chill.
It does sound crazy when you put it like that.
Well, there was a thing that I remember that, like, when a bunch of those Irish gals were telling me, like, they're like, I think they're looking into it as some sort of like modern slavery case, and I was like, fucking hell.
Do you love a curry on a Saturday night? Good to have you in the country, but
get down there.
Thanks for popping over.
And do you feel, you said you are feeling pretty settled in Sydney now, or?
Yeah. I'd say, in the last month or so, I've had some real good moments of being like, okay, I think this is where I live now. Yeah. And I think I conceptualized it as like, I'm just ducking up there for work for a bit. But I'm like, no, it's my life. And I should sort of let it be my life. You know what I mean? Because I was thinking of it as well as like, I'll go there, do the contract to the end of next year, and then who knows what'll go on beyond that. But whenever the job ends, I'll come back to Melbourne. That's how I'd always thought of it. I'm like, well, it's crazy to think of it that way. I should just think like, this is just what I'm doing in my life at the moment and worry about it later, you know?
Yeah. Be open to those possibilities or what could happen with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing too is like, when you're thrown into an opportunity like that too, like you kind of got to dive into it as well and be like, this is the thing I'm doing now.
100%.
You know?
100%. I think I realized I'm a pretty impatient kind of fella as well, because I kept being like, why haven't I figured out how to do exercise, and why am I tired, and why don't I find time to do social shit on the weekend, and why haven't I found a good balance with stand up again? I'm like, dude, it's only been a couple months. Like, give it time. Is the thing I'm relying on again now, which is fucking useful.
And I guess with that job it happened very quickly. I think remember when you first told a bunch of us that it was happening, and it was like, you're going to Sydney within a month?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
it had been like bubbling up. I thought it might be a thing that would happen. So it was like, didn't come fully out of nowhere for me. But from the confirmation of like, yes, you're doing it, to you start on this date was, a month or something like that.
That's wild.
It went nuts.
And you were packing all your shit up.
I was packing all my shit up. My poor old Zach Dyer, I just abandoned him.
Has he found a new housemate yet?
I don't know, and I don't think so. And I've stopped asking.
It's no longer your problem.
Yeah. It stopped being your problem some time ago.
I'd get real stressed about it, and I was trying to help him for a while, and I was posting and I was sharing around and shit like that. And I'd really worry myself, and I felt guilty about it too. I was like, I've abandoned this beautiful guy who, because we're good mates, and he was an awesome housemate and stuff. And then I just felt bad, and I was like, I actually had to take a moment and ban myself from thinking and worrying about poor old Zach. I was like, this is his job.
He's probably sitting there now going, imagine the reach he's got from his socials. So many more opportunities for a housemate.
I definitely sent some people his way as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you interviewed him.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think I'm seeing him tonight, so I might ask him now when I see him in person. But I'd gamble on a no. No, he hasn't.
And we talked a little bit about it last night, but adjusting to I guess, you're on a national radio show now.
Yeah,
that must feel pretty surreal now.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like, I think Chet and I, at least for the sake of like just doing the show and trying to be in the moment and stuff, we both have it in common. You don't sit there and think about like who might be hearing it or who's listening or how many people or whatever. You try to just think like, oh, what are we doing? Does it sound good? Is it pretty fun to do or whatever? Does it make sense? But then you do get moments where you realize like sometimes there's a big flood of text, or like we had One Night Stand, the like regional festival that Triple J used to put on and brought back this year for the first time in 5 years or something like that. That was a big nuts one where like just all day, every day, people are coming up and going, I listen to you and I do this and I'm from here and I'm from here. That was a crazy realization of like, oh yeah, this is national and people everywhere are hearing it.
Yeah, I can't imagine the scale of it. Like, we get it, guys that look exactly like us come up to us at Hardcore Show and go, well, I'll listen to you guys. I can't imagine it's like times 10,000. It's like,
yeah. And even the other day, like Chet and I were just doing something else, hanging out in the afternoon, and then I drove her back to her house, and she got out and was sort of like talking through the window of the car, and some guy who was parked just across the road, some tradie in like an electrician van, was like, oi, is that Conchetta? And she was like, yeah. And he goes, oh, and it's fucking Luka as well. And he's like, just had been sitting there, but hearing our voices. He was like, I don't even know what you two look like. But when I heard you talk to each other, I was like, I listen to you two every morning.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, just a guy on the street.
You guys hang out outside?
And nuts one was when we went to Warrnambool for One Night Stand. So they like keep it a secret for ages and then have a big announce where they like, we went there in secret so that we can be like, you go on air that morning, you're like, guess what, guys, we're in Warrnambool. Fuck, it's going down. And so they try to keep it secret, do a pretty good job. Like even the ABC Warrnambool like staff don't know that we're going to be coming in there. They just book out the studio and shit like that. But the night before, Jed and I like went and got dinner and we walked in to pick up at this Thai restaurant and some guy was leaving as we were coming in and he opened the door for us and then just went like, and I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't even cross my mind that I'd be being recognized. I thought he was just like losing his shit. Oh, hey, man. He goes,
this guy's having a heart attack.
and he goes, you cunts really are fucking coming here. And we're like, yep. We are. So it must have done the rounds in the group chats after that. But it was a secret until then.
Holy dooly.
But yeah, crazy seeing like his, I don't know, yeah. I think a lot of the time, for better or worse, I don't really exist in the mind of other people. You know what I mean?
Well, we've had this funny thing like with these shows since we started doing this together. We obviously hang out all the time. So then like I'm like, if I'm at a show by myself, I don't cop it that much and you're probably the same. But then we're often at the thing together. So not only is it recognizable because of who we are anyway, but it's even more recognizable because we're both there standing next to one another. So it's like, and I think that there's been like 2 times where people like we don't know have been like, hey, I listened to your podcast, and we're like, oh, okay, cool. And then I was like standing there being like, looks like we're kind of like promoting this here. Like we're just standing here like anyone else want to
just hold little mics. Put the headphones on. Anyone,
I mean, we're trying to make every show a tax write-off. So.
Yeah, I don't know. It is weird, and I still don't really have my head around it. But then sometimes you get those really lovely but like intense messages of like, I listen to you every morning, and it's like, you helped me through a hard time or whatever. It's just like, wow, it's bonk.
Yeah. Tough to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing too is like you, through shows like this, you start getting exposed to like doing interviews and meeting like other people that are probably have that times a million as well.
100%,
like I saw the other day, you guys were talking to Olivia Rodrigo, who I assume is like, you know, got to be one of the most popular people on earth at the moment.
She's way up there. Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine. That was like a junket thing. So it's like all security and stuff. And then you're sort of in there for like 10 minutes and stuff. But they ran late to it because there was all paparazzi. And then when we left, like I think they just saw people coming out of the building and all the cameras started going off and shit. Got like a tiny little glimpse of what it must be like. I was like, this is some next level shit. Unreal. Yeah. Like maybe 50 people just gathered out the front of these offices waiting.
Yeah.
Hoping to catch a glimpse.
Yeah, that's like real, like, you know, people with the signs holding it up. Like, I remember you said last night that like the concert, like the decibels on the screaming was like next level.
The screaming was nuts, yeah. Doesn't ever happen at stand-up, you know.
They don't have a meter out. Tell you like, hey, calm down.
Start getting it going for your next act.
It's hard to get a decibel read on crossed arms.
Yeah, what does it register? Like the one hand clap on a thigh.
Someone trying to carry a beer. Oh, sorry, man.
I got my beer, cunt. What do you want? I can't clap. Leave me be.
Yeah, nothing I love more than someone trying to eat food during a stand-up show.
Oh, yeah.
One of the classics.
Yeah. Are there, like, surely, I mean, I assume you've both done it before, but like, is there places in Australia that do like dinner and a show type stand-up shit or no?
I think a lot of them try to go like the dinner happens and then the show starts kind of vibe. But it definitely happens. Now I've never had it where it's like a full room of people who are like being served like, as it's happening. But it is out there.
I mean, I took over Catfish, the gig you ran for a long time, and they serve food. So often people will be eating in the audience, but it's like scattered. Most people, are doing the get there early, eat, and then bail. Or then come to the show.
I remember once at Gorilla, which is this terrible open mic that used to be in Hawthorne, and they had like burgers. And I was hosting once, and this whole table of people, maybe like 6 of them, all got served burgers right as I walked on stage. And I was like, oh, hey. And I sort of addressed it because it can be weird with food and comedy. And I kind of just wanted them to eat and get it out of the way so that it was done. Because it's like, you just can't pay attention and laugh while you're eating a fucking burger. Yeah. And it's nuts. Don't you reckon it's such a like it's such a like symptom of the modern way of consuming entertainment, because it's like whenever you sit down to watch TV or whatever, you like want to eat dinner with it. It's that same thing. It's like, well, I watch the thing while I eat. That's why I want to have a burger while I
gotta
see
have
comedy.
rice.
I need my little rice to consume.
It is that, and I think so many people. Like I was talking to a Sydney comic. He was talking about a comedian he was opening for, who their audience is primarily from TikTok, and they said that the first shows that they did with that person, they just didn't know how to interact with the show.
Oh, really?
The stand-up show. And most of them just had their phones out trying to film.
Wow.
And this act like had to put a video in to say like, this is how you enjoy the show. Now the shows are sick, and they got their audience from TikTok and has like made it better. But it was an interesting like thought experiment of like, oh, you have this younger audience who don't really go out. They consume things online mostly, and getting them to a live show is a bizarre experience. And stand up is I think I've heard people say a very millennial pursuit.
Yeah, I can see that. It's different rhythm and everything. Yeah. But this fucking gig at Gorilla, they had their burgers, and I was like, oh, it can be weird to stand up, blah, blah, blah. Feel free to eat. Just go ahead and eat. And they were like, no, we'll wait until the break. It's all good. And then I finished, and then within like 2 minutes of the first act getting on and being really dog shit, just somebody started to like slowly pick up the burger and have a crack. And then within the next like 2 acts, everyone was just hoeing in. They were like, well, the laughter isn't going to happen. So we can stuff our gobs. It's all good.
At the dog shit open mic, doesn't really matter. You can be doing whatever you want.
Yeah. Have popcorn, chew the whole time.
I remember when I did some live podcasts for this like ages ago, we did it at the Rev in Footscray, and part of the deal with like organizing it with them was like, again, not having done stand up or anything like that, I was like, yeah, I had dinner and a show. I don't give a fuck. Let them have food, whatever. And then like, as I was recording, people are eating Palmers and like scraping plates. And I was sitting up there going like, no one on stage who I was doing the podcast with like cared, but all that was going through my head the whole time is like, how the fuck am I going to get that out of the audio?
Like someone's in their car listening to this going like, fuck, I know.
This sucks.
I was having a panic attack. It's the most overwhelming thing I've ever listened to.
And I'm like trying to like drive and talk to people, and then the second I hear a knife, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, goddamn.
And I guess, you when did you start stand up, and how long's it been now?
Dude, it's been so long. It's nuts. I did my first gig when I was in year 12, so I was 17. I did Class Clowns, which for the listeners who don't know, it's like the comedy festival runs a thing where it's like a comedian goes out to high schools and you sort of learn about doing stand-up for a day. It's generally like an extracurricular activity with drama or whatever, but my school wasn't having it, but a school in Bendigo was having it, so I was like, can I go to that? So I went there. So yeah, I go to that and sort of did maybe like 4 gigs as part of that, like first round, second round, national final, 1 gig like weird back in Echuca at some friend's pub or something like that. But then by then like knew that I wanted to do it when I moved to Melbourne. That was the main thing I got out of it. Like talked to Xavier Michaelides, and he was just sort of telling me about what it's like to do comedy and, travel around to festivals and shit like that. And obviously like the stand-up part of it was appealing, but hearing more about the lifestyle and what it's like, I was like, that just sounds like the coolest shit in the world. That's awesome, man. You go to Perth every January. That's just so dope. You're living the dream. And so then in my head, I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And then moved to Melbourne. It was Valentine's Day 2013, in fact.
There you go.
And that's sort of when I consider having actually started, even though I did a couple of gigs before that. So what's that? Fucking 11 and a half years ago or something.
Yeah.
It's ages.
It's a wild journey.
And then you popped in, what? Maybe 3 years after that or
2015, middle of 2015 I started. So just after that year's comedy festival, I'm like, I'm fucking doing it.
Yes.
But I'd been...
Did you know Ben back then?
Yeah.
When he was first starting?
Yeah. So we like had known each other through music stuff for a while.
Yeah.
And then...
I think I met you in maybe 2011.
Yeah.
Like a year after I moved here, maybe.
And then...
Because I think that's when I played The Weekender.
And I was...
That's probably around when we met.
I was doing a podcast and we...
Yeah.
I can never remember the timing of this stuff. Like... I mean, it's all literally documented online.
Yeah. Could look it up.
With exact dates. But I guess I started out just doing a few gigs here and there, always like big breaks. Like I'd do a set, then I'd be like, or if it went well, I'd be like, all right, I'll ride that feeling for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Or if I'd bomb, I'd like, just try and stop killing myself for a couple of weeks.
Need time to recover.
But it sort of took, I would say, two things like to do it. And I guess you never really feel like you're doing it until you're doing it regularly. That was the kind of first barrier for me. But I remember speaking to our good friend, Pete Jones, who said just like keep coming back. And Sam Taunton said to me at Crab Lab, he was like, just do it twice a week and then you'll want to do it more. So that's kind of how it really kicked me into gear of doing it. But,
similar to me at the very start, like a little bit of fits and starts first couple of months, but then you start doing it. And like we were saying before, it just becomes scarcity mindset. You're like, I got to do every single possible gig that I can.
Well, I think I remember like, I guess not that I don't like we as your friends knew you were doing it, but I don't think you were like, hey, come see me do it for like quite a while.
Yeah. Whereas, that
Great
was
move.
Yeah. Whereas,
but then
like,
I think
a lot of young kids are like, I got to tell every one of my friends. To come.
Well, and I think like, and I'm pretty sure then by the time you were obviously confident enough to tell everyone to do it, like we all knew that that's what you were doing, and we're like, oh yeah, that'll be good. And then I think, but I mean, I even think then, like, I don't know how regularly this happens for you, but like the reality is after like the first little push of those things, the hype from your friends to go to that shit is like the hardest thing in the world anyway.
Big time.
I mean, I play shows like every other week and all my friends are not there. I can guarantee you that much.
You got to pick your battles as you get further in and go like, all right, guys, it's been a couple of years. Come to this one. This is the big one, all right?
This is the one I care about.
Like, be actually good, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like early on you invite people and they're like, that was really, you did great. And then they're probably like, you're not that good.
Yeah.
And just part of it.
I think for better or worse, when I first started, because I'd just moved to Melbourne, I didn't know anyone. I had a couple of friends that had moved around the same time, but barely even really saw them. So I had no one to invite, number one, which was good, a relief. Nobody comes to me dog shit, apart from my brother a few times. And so then just my whole entire social life became comedians and everything. And not that much has changed, really.
And I guess that move from Echuca, like, what was it like growing up there? And, you're a big music fan. What was the music like in regional places? How was that experience?
Dude, Echuca, like my whole time growing up there until I was 18 or whatever and left, I was like, fuck this place. I hate it. It's the shittest place in the world. But looking back, it was just like, it's just a teenager's, angsty and depressed about shit. Pretty dope place to grow up, really. Like it's a small town. I think it's like 20,000 people now, but it was always 10,000 like the whole time that I was there. It's grown a lot the last few years. But it's like small, good amount of small where you get to experience cool country stuff, nature, farms, going in the river, whatever. But big enough where you're not really that isolated or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think I was just being a fucking being a whinger when I was hating it. But weirdly, like Echuca, very good, like had a hardcore scene, like for the years that I was living there. Very bizarre aspect, but huge, like defining sort of thing in my teens was the music scene in Echuca.
Well, I feel like a lot of those places, like, bands I knew from here would go to Albury Wodonga pretty regularly, and then Echuca, and then Bendigo and Ballarat. Like it seems like there was more of that then at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
there was probably more funding for like Freezer and stuff.
Yep.
For regional stuff.
I played a show. I played a show in Wagga when I was like 16.
Wow.
Like in a death metal band. And still to this day, it's like, how the fuck did I do that? Like now I could not do that. And I'm in like a much more successful band now. I can't imagine booking a show there. And then I remember the two that I played when I was a kid, and I was in a band, like a death metal band. I was 16 and the two other guys in the band were in their 30s. And I remember the first time they came to my house, my mum was like, why do you want to be in a band with a 16-year-old? these guys are like, we need a drummer. There's no other drummers. Like,
this kid rips.
But I played a show in Wagga with them, and it was like our death metal band, another death metal band, and then like a Guns N' Roses cover band.
Yes.
Like that was it.
Yeah, I have such fond memories of all these weird like mixed genre, mixed bill lineups that would happen. There must have been a bit of it before, but I older brother, 4 years older than me. And then he had sort of a group of about 5 or 6 friends who just sort of all got into like punk and hardcore about the same age when they were like 18 and I was like 14 or something like that. And I was already into sort of things along those lines. I think I liked like NoFX and shit at that age. And then they sort of made the switch to more like, I guess, Black Flag and, you know, Minor Threat, like those early hardcore bands that you get into and stuff. And so then off the back of that, they made a band called Violent Urge that my brother was the singer in.
Awesome.
Very sick. Listened to their demo a few weeks ago. Jeez, it's fuzzy as hell.
Quality's gone up in the last couple of years.
A 2009, like 2-track recorder. Absolutely brutal conditions. But yeah, they sort of made a band and would play like a couple shows. They played in like our backyard and some other guy's backyard. But then there was like a lot of freezer events where it was like them who were like a pretty, I guess, sort of 80s hardcore sounding band. And then like a metalcore band.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was this band that came from Deniliquin, like an hour north of Echuca, that would just sort of do like punky covers of Beastie Boys songs and stuff. And then eventually 2 identical twin brothers in Echuca formed a band and they just did G.G. Allen covers. So those were sort of the core of the Echuca scene for a while there. Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I've heard you talk a little bit about it, but I didn't realize the depth of the scene there. That's like kind of pretty big for a pretty regional place.
Yeah, a handful of bands. And then, yeah, like often traveling bands would come either to Bendigo and then we'd go to there or sometimes to Echuca and stuff. And then it was a lot of like me and that same crew of dudes just constantly traveling up to shows in Melbourne and like, you know, trying to be a part of the scene even though we lived in a different place. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like, would there be one hardcore band in Echuca now?
I doubt it. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, again, like, I guess it comes in waves, but like, the other show that I remember playing at that time when I was a kid was there was this huge metal festival in Scone, like deep north New South Wales.
Yeah.
And we played this thing and it was like at the time, like I can't remember who it was, but there was an international band played it and then like big Australian death metal bands at the time and then our stupid little one from Canberra. But like it was like the first time I ever had like professional photos of me, like I was like, man, this is high res. Like,
were you doing some gnarly? That was like shit I love looking back on is all the busted like press shots that metal bands would do, like in the train yard, and the overpass and stuff.
I have a classic that I'm sure I could dig up, but I'm from Canberra, and where my mum's house is backs onto a pine plantation. Like it's a big hill that's just all pine trees, so it's like grim as hell.
Very death metal.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like 14-year-old us are like, got to get up there for the promo pic. And the promo...
Black and white, threshold way up in Photoshop.
But the promo pic, I can't remember who took the photo, but it was definitely just like mum's digital camera, like whatever, 3 megapixel, like, and I was the drummer in that band, and we were all like, well, I guess we got to have our instruments so people know who we are.
They know what we're doing. So I just think there's kids who are on the hill.
Yeah, so everyone brought their guitars, and I just brought drumsticks. And in this photo, I'm just like standing kind of awkwardly, like holding drumsticks. And it's like, and yeah, I mean, that was on the internet for like, you know, that was the MySpace pic.
Get that up on Photobucket.
Yeah, there was some awesome vibes back then. My brother's, Violent Urge, and then there's a like metalcore band called Upon Deaf Ears, but everyone referred to him as Ood, like UDE. Ood, such a funny thing to call a band. And then there was an offshoot of Violent Urge called Repulse that played sort of like power violence, real fast thrashy shit. And they played a few shows in Melbourne and stuff like that. And then eventually I think like they all moved and like joined bands in Melbourne and stuff. And I was like the only hardcore kid in all of Echuca. It's a lonely life when I was like 16 and they'd all moved to the city.
And I guess like, you know, that stuff sort of died a little bit and now it's kind of coming back. Does it feel interesting to kind of like reconnect with it a little bit?
Yeah, it's cool. It's great because it was like I said, very defining for me, I think. Like I was always constantly traveling up to Melbourne, like seeing the bands that were big at the time were like Straight Jacket Nation and Extortion and Meat Locker and bands like that.
Yeah.
Would have gone to maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 shows across a couple years or something like that, couple festivals and stuff, and just loved it and thought it was the sickest. And it was so different and so removed from like anything I'd seen in Echuca or anything I knew about music or anything like that. And then I think when everyone moved away and then I felt a bit disconnected from it, and then I moved to Melbourne to start comedy and felt a similar thing where it was like, it's never feels like it's about commercial pursuit. It's about like scene building and community building and just doing the thing for the sake of like, you want to fucking do it. You know what I mean? So I think I was like getting satisfied in that same way from the comedy scene and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's been cool the last couple of years again, like trying to reconnect and take an interest in new hardcore music coming out and stuff.
Well, and I think when you're starting comedy, you do have to like fully throw yourself into it. And I feel like for me, it's been nice to like, I had those years in comedy of like being solely focused on it and I wasn't as focused on music stuff.
Very consuming.
Yeah. And then it's been nice to have that as an escape now from comedy stuff. And you know, you can do that when you are more established or people know who you are a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing too, like I remember back, you know, when you first started doing comedy, it was like, it wasn't like I didn't see you any, you know, I wasn't seeing you any less than I did otherwise, because generally speaking, you're doing it on Monday through Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
When you're first starting out, I guess hitting all those open mics and shit. And then like, so for me, I was like, I'm not really noticing any change here. And then obviously you start getting better at it and start doing more shows and stuff. And then it's like, oh, now he's doing it on Friday and Saturday. So now like, and then that's when it was like, oh, I guess I'll go start going to these shows. Because like I was working in a primary school and I was getting up at fucking 5 a.m. So I wasn't going out on a Monday to see Stella do stand up. Sorry.
Come see me do this gig for 3 people.
But you guys are like, you know, you're scene guys, because it feels like hardcore's having like a bit of a popular moment. Obviously speed and stuff, but even like Turnstile, whatever. It's like bigger bands, more of a more crossover stuff. Do you agree with that? I guess question number one. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's definitely a post-COVID thing.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it a bit on the pod. And I mean, for us doing the pod again was like, originally it was like, you know, going to be more of a mix of comedians and stuff like that. And then it just worked out that a bunch of hardcore bands were available and free to do it.
Yeah.
Comedians were way more harder to lock in. And it just worked out that way. But that scene has also really got behind it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, America kind of has hard law and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That pod, and then it's worked really well for us to kind of right place, right time kind of thing. So
yeah. Oh man, this fucking buzzing.
I've never had this in here before ever.
Spooky.
We literally did one in here an hour ago. I mean, I think it's definitely a COVID thing. I mean, again, like we've also talked about it here a couple times that like music shit always works in waves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And particularly hardcore is like very like cyclical. Like it'll get to a point probably in the next couple of years where it'll bottom out again.
Yeah.
And then something will need to save it and bring it back around.
And it is like young person's music.
Absolutely.
Like obviously, you know, we can be into it, but it doesn't work unless there are new bands.
100%.
Yeah.
And the old bands coming back, sure, it's interesting and it's cool. But I mean, I find the cooler part of it is the younger kids doing bands, and they are generally the better bands as well.
Yeah. I mean, even the thing now, like, you know, playing in Extortion now, a band that I like loved when I was younger and then became friends with them and then, you know, inevitably joined the band. Even like, so Extortion didn't do anything for 7 years, I think, or maybe nearly 8 years. And then those first couple shows we did were like, it was again, I think it was just the timing thing because we were meant to do all this shit pre-COVID and then COVID hit, so we binned everything. Then we sat on it for 2 years and then put out this record that was done pre-COVID, played all these shows, and they were all like psycho. And I think it was the perfect time to do it because it was like, not only had it been 8 years of no Extortion, but it had also been 2 years of nothing. Like no one had done shit for 2 years, you know?
Yeah. Well,
so it popped it, but then it's now not petering out. The show's still good and everything's still going well. But like I was talking about today with a mate of mine that like the first couple shows we booked, like all sold out pre-sale, like the day it went on sale. Now we're back to like, gotta share that story, guys. Can everyone share that story? Get these tickets moving a little bit.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah, I was listening to this. It was a political commentator, like online culture. This guy Joshua Citarella, and he talked about it from political aspect that a lot of young kids in COVID were just online, got like kind of politically radicalized, and then after lockdowns and stuff ended, and this was in like the States, but where they didn't have as brutal lockdowns, but a lot of kids were like really politicized, then lockdowns ended, and then they got involved in their local punk and hardcore scene because that was then the outlet.
Yeah.
And I think that probably happened here, particularly in Melbourne. So many people sitting inside watching those fucking Hate 5-6 videos. Going like, I got to start a band. Like, and it just exploded. Like, I think that's the way it was for me as well. Like, coming back to it and being more of a participant was like, it's sick. I remember why I loved this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and we've talked about it here as well, but like, I was like, I had a lot of people used COVID as like this opportunity to like start bands and write songs and all this. And I'd obviously been doing it for a long time, but I had like the opposite. Like, I was like, I cannot play guitar because the only reason I like playing guitar is so that I can like get drunk at pubs with my friends. It's a function for me to do the social thing I like doing. And like, you know, I like recording and I like putting out music, but like playing shows is why I do it.
Yeah.
And so when I was at home, I was like, this is fucking depressing. I can't write a song and then know maybe I'll never leave my house. Like, I didn't know. No one knew what was fucking going on.
Yeah. The writing in itself is not the good part.
No.
The end product.
It's the other thing. And so I started doing this again during COVID because I was like, this was a better thing for me to do because I was like talking to people on Zoom and it was fun and whatever. And then when, you know, it ended and we got out of lockdown, I just stopped doing the podcast like straight away because I was like, I can talk to people at the pub again. I don't need to record this. Like,
no, it's cool. New Revival's cool. Like, been to a handful of shows since I moved to Sydney and stuff. Fucking great bands up there, great vibes, like cool crowds and stuff. Like, seems like good numbers and very like cool young people in there and shit.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it with a couple of episodes ago with Zach from Disdain. It was like, it seems like it's much more merged with other parts of culture as well, like fashion and it seemed like shows seem very mixed and it's not just about hardcore and, you know, it's very way more diverse gender wise, sexuality wise, everything wise.
Yeah.
Which is only gonna have more longevity, I think.
Yeah. And get different people involved with it too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think like when I was a metal kid and I came to it from playing in metal bands. And then, but like, you know, and while I still like what I would listen to and what I like the most of is the metal side of it. But like, again, I've said it here quite a few times, but like I am a hardcore person. Like my personality is attached to that part of it. It's not attached to metal as much as I like that. And like talking about it at breakfast with my partner this morning that like, I just still dress like I saw a Pantera video and I just have looked that way since. Like that's been my fashion sense.
You are the meme.
Yeah, I am that meme.
Of like, I'm dressing up for a night out with babe with camo shorts.
Yes, I am truly that. But like I think the difference now is that like at the time it was just me and everyone else that looked like me. And then now it's like I am the odd one out now in that mix. And that is great. Like that will make it so much better.
I don't think I was like that conscious of it at the time, but looking back, like all those shows I would come to when I was like, you know, 16, 17 or whatever, it was super white and it was like very male dominated.
Oh yeah.
And then this was a couple years ago now, but I saw Otoboke Beaver, that like Japanese band. And obviously they're pretty like popular. They have some like pop aspects to their songwriting and stuff, but like they're pretty fucking weird, heavy band, like pretty much do play power violence basically. And seeing their crowd and seeing like how diverse it was and how queer it was and how many women were there and how many like range of ages and shit, it made me look back on those old shows and be like, oh dude, this is really fucking cool and like moving that there's like such a different audience exposed to this now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the way, you know, I sort of was going to hardcore shows and metal shows and then more sort of lent towards more melodic punk and, you know, that, shudder to say, folk punk stuff that was, you know, associated with the Poison City scene at the time, bands like Luca Brasi and Smith Street and all that sort of stuff. And they were kind of the bigger bands in that scene. And I think part of it for me was, as much as I loved hardcore, there was a wave of it that was like hyper masculine, hyper violent, and that was pretty like yuck.
Yeah.
And the thing I like now is that, you know, people still mosh hard as fuck, all that sort of stuff, but it is like, well, you know, no one's saying slurs anymore. Like that's a big I mean, I'm sure they are saying so still. I mean, but, but that side of it, I think, has become, it's way more progressive.
Yeah.
Which I think for it to have longevity needs to happen.
Yeah, totally. I went to what's called Jerkfest in Geelong last year.
Yeah.
And seeing like, Straight Jacket play, and then like earlier in the day, Gut Health play, who like we play a bit of on Triple J. It's sort of a weird like post-punk, dance punk. I don't even know, not connected, you wouldn't think, to really Straight Jacket or a band like that.
Yeah.
But seeing the same crowd love them and like respond to them equally, and like this mix of crowd was pretty sick.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the other thing too, like one of the shows that Extortion did in the States recently, we played, it was like an all ages show at this little joint that's like a ballet studio. And I was like, I've talked about it at length, but I'm like, no secret is like, I don't really like playing all ages shows because I'm a primary school teacher and it feels like I'm at work. Like, this is very weird being here and doing the thing that is my other life. And we went to this thing, and I would say like, I mean, 50%, if not more, of the kids there were not like white boys, which was like, I had never seen that in my life. And then they were moshing like crazy. They were all buying merch. Like and then at the end, they all got picked up by their parents. And it was really like, man, this is fucking wild. Like, this is so much different to what I've been experiencing the last, however many years. And that, that was in America. But then recently here, like even going to the like all ages speed high-vis show here, it was kind of the same thing. It was like, there was fucking parents there with their kids, and there was like, there was definitely some grumpy old dads up the back, just like, yeah, love that. Take me to Sydney. Fuck, get me out of here.
They should do more of the flute. They got to get the flute more. Lean into the flute stuff, fellas. That's nice.
But it's like definitely in a moment. Yeah, and I am always a bit conscious that like the moment will end, but I'm glad that I'm participating in the moment. Yeah, it's very good.
Well, it's sort of like enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, totally. and I guess the other thing that comes out of it is like that exposure to wider audience. You'll end up with more interesting bands. Like that's how you end up with a Gut Health or like a, I don't know, Shady Nasty or something like that. Like hybrid genre stuff.
Yeah, and I think like the Turnstile thing is like obviously probably what kicked it off globally, and them, seeing their crowds now is so mixed, and it has been like that since the most recent album. And it's like, okay, like it was already heading that way, but it was definitely way more just hardcore dudes before that. Yeah. And it's like changing their style, making it more open and stuff. It's like some people are like, oh, it's not fucking purist. And it's like, this shit rocks when it's not purist.
But I mean, I think the actual recent example of that is that on my 21st birthday, I played a show with Trapped Under Ice in Canberra. It's like the most hungover I've ever been in my life. I had a mohawk drawn onto my head in permanent marker, which was sick for the next like month. But with Trapped Under Ice, two of the drummer who is the singer of Turnstile and their merch guy who is the bass player in Turnstile played at Tuggeranong Youth Centre to probably like 50 people on my 21st birthday. Now that band is like one of the biggest, they're headlining festivals and playing to like a shit ton of people. Their other like merch guy at that show was the singer from High Vis, who just came here and did like this crazy tour with, his band that are now becoming like this incredibly popular thing. And it's like, whenever people are like giving bands like that grief or being like, this isn't fucking hardcore, it's like, shut the fuck up, cunt. Yeah. Where were you at Tuggeranong Youth Centre with my fucking permanent marker mohawk? Like, they were there, They saw me on my worst day.
How often you have to reapply the permanent marker?
Never again, thankfully.
Yeah, it's our entire system.
Yeah, just draw it on at this point. It all went.
So obviously Triple J for the next little while for you for now. But you recorded a special a little while ago. It's coming out soonish.
Yeah, no date yet, but like sort of last week of November, first week of December type situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made. I want to make it so you can have the scratch and sniff cards at the show.
Sick.
Listeners have no idea, but yeah, there was I went through a lot of grief to make scratch and sniff cards so that people could smell along with the stories in my show. And now I want to make it so that I can like, you know how, I don't know, brands or whatever will do like order by this date to make sure you have it in time for Christmas. I want to know the date of my special so they can do that for my scratch and sniff cards.
You'd send
so I
them
can
out.
put them in the fucking post, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
sick.
But that'll come out, late November, December.
That was a cool, like, you know, not a lot. People hand out little zines and stuff at shows, but that was a great concept.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that...
It was kind of painful experience of putting it together.
It was painful, but it was worthwhile in the end. And also dumb, like, I decided way before I made the scratch and sniff cards that I wanted to do a stand-up show like about smells. Like that was just the interesting idea to me first. I was like, that's a funny structure to talk about these smells or whatever. And then it took some other random person literally on the last day of my Edinburgh run going, you should make scratch and sniff cards. It'd be like a good thing to go along with the show. I was like, yeah, shit, that is a decent idea actually. Because people are often like, oh yeah, it's such a good like marketing plan or whatever. I'm like, this is never, I never thought of this. I wish it was a good marketing
just got to
plan.
live it.
I'm just going to fucking live it. Yeah, get in there.
Yeah, that, and I guess, you know, you were gonna be at Edinburgh this year, and the Triple J stuff like completely changed your trajectory. Did it feel like, because you were going before COVID, bit after as well? I feel like you, Pete, Noxie, and a few others were the real Edinburgh like trailblazers for a lot of us for a few years.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we went in 2018 for the first time and did like split show, and then 2019 did another one. And then obviously a couple of years off for COVID, but then really went all in like 2022 and did like 3 split shows a day, and I was doing a solo and all this and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was a bummer to not go, but I did have a weird sense of like, I don't know, like pride or legacy or something like that. Like, cause yeah, we set up these, Threes Comedy is the name of the, I guess you'd say brand or the umbrella of the shows or something like that. And there's now like 5 of those on a day, and they're pretty reliably good, like have good numbers, and you can make decent cash off them and stuff like that. So I definitely felt this cool feeling of like legacy to like, I'm not there anymore, but I've helped make this cool thing of a show that now like you and Taco and Jordan Barr and whoever else gets
definitely
it going.
Great to walk into last year. You're like, oh, we're not flying, we're not doing shit. Thanks for doing 5 years worth of work, guys.
Well, to be fair, we just got pretty lucky anyway. Like, you just got lucky a couple of years after us. It's not like we put in all this crazy hard work to fly and build the brand name or anything like that. It just worked, and then we're like, oh shit, maybe if we do this, I think this will like work out every year. So it made me feel 1 billion years old. It made me feel like I'd quit comedy and was on my deathbed, because I was like, well, that's my final legacy, is I've passed on Threes Comedy to these guys. These are the thoughts you have when you're like, you've just started waking up at 4 a.m. every day and you just have no idea.
Too much time to think.
Yeah, 5 in the afternoon. Was smoking way too much weed when I first moved to start. It's like, well, I'm finished and I'm tired. Normally what I like doing on tie is chill out and smoke some weed. He's high all in the afternoon. Like, wow.
On your big walk.
Yeah, literally.
You're on your big walk, stoned as Ben's in Edinburgh going, thank fuck someone flying before me.
I'm enjoying my retirement of sorts. But no, it's good. How was it this year? I was sad not to be there.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, this was my first full one, and yeah, pretty wild experience, and trying to like manage that time and stuff. So this year felt more like work in a good way.
Yeah.
Like it felt like last year was very much me dipping my toes in, checking it out, saw a ton of shows. Probably saw the same amount of shows this year, but over a longer time, because it just wasn't as, you're trying to manage your energy levels. And we did I had this weird gap in the day where you're like, I should go nap, and if I stay out through it, I'm going to be fucked. So every year I feel like you learn a little bit more about how to do that festival. I think I probably will take next year off, but that pains me because I was like, I want to do this every year.
Yeah.
This rocks.
Yeah.
And I guess it's interesting to see the comedians that it seems like such a different experience for some people.
Yes.
Some people go over there and they're like, I fucking hate this festival.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why. There's just something fucked up about me. I just genuinely love the experience.
Yeah, even though it's exhausting and overwhelming and stuff, I'm the same. And that's what I missed about the most is because it's just this real intense month of 4 gigs a day, but it doesn't feel, feel like pressure or even nerves or anything like that. It's like feels like a distillation of what you want from comedy, of just like, oh, I'm just going in there and I'll do the jokes and hopefully they laugh at it. There's no like stakes, where sometimes in it, especially it's like in Melbourne, a city that you live in, you spend time, even if it's subconsciously, thinking about like, oh, this gig's good, but what about after that, and where's it all going? It's this month where you just get to like exit reality really and go like, oh, I'll just go there and do that for a bit, and like it's always so good how much it cuts you off from the world, you know?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, like that distillation of like, it's just the thing. It's not worrying about, oh, I got to do well on this gig because of this, and I got to...
And, oh, this person's up the back of the room, and, oh, this joke...
you haven't got time to think about that. You're just like, I've got another gig in 15 minutes. And I'm going to go there, and halfway through, I'm going to think, have I already said this?
You can be pretty slippery for your brain, where you're like in the same 4 rooms every day doing kind of the same set. You're like, how far into it am I? Who are these people? Are these the ones from yesterday? What the fuck's going on?
Yeah. And not giving yourself too much time to wallow in, like, if it doesn't go well, if it's like that. It's like,
because you can get redemption 30 minutes later.
Yeah, and you don't want to take that into the next show either. But yeah, I think I'd love to go back next year, but I think I'll take a little break, and then I would love to move to the UK. But you know, I feel like if I put this out there on the pod, it'll
start happening.
But it would be later, very late next year.
Yeah. It's a whole fucking thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just gotta. It's exhausting, fellas. You got to keep like doing shit for your whole life, you know.
Yeah.
Until you die, you got to find something to do.
You got to keep busy.
Keep busy until the grave.
Yeah.
What should I get up to?
But thank you very much for coming in today, mate. We really appreciate it.
No, dudes, thanks for having me. It's so cool.
We'll have to get you back another time,
please,
when you're down here. It was a fun chat.
Yeah.
Got anything you want to? Watch the special.
Watch the special. Yeah, follow me on socials for updates on that. Luka Muller. It's going to be on the Comedy Republic YouTube.
Oh, sick! That's great.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
That's the deal. Yeah, it's sick.
And get up at the crack of dawn and listen to you on the radio.
And yeah, hang out with me from 6 to 9 a.m. And if you listen to this podcast, probably play a song you like, maybe like once a week or something.
Well, I haven't seen you since this, but you did play an extortion song one time during the middle of the day. And I was like, and at band practice, someone was like, hey, do you know Triple J played one of our songs during the middle of the day? I was like, I think there's a hardcore guy there. They're not just get fucked on in the middle of the day.
Yeah, I used to be able to sneak in a fair bit, especially when I was doing covers and it felt like nobody was really paying attention that much. Sneak in, a couple of, a bit of Geld, played like Alien Nose Job, some shit like that. But then when you make the shift to breakfast, there's eyes on.
There's rules.
You play these songs, cunt.
You're talking to Olivia Rodrigo. Extortion's off the menu.
Sick.
You got anything to plug, Ben?
Actually, was this close to? Sorry to interrupt the plug.
No,
beautiful products. I was this close to wearing the extortion hat to the Olivia Rodrigo interview, but Chet told me not to. I was like, I think the grey goes with the purple shirt well, and she was like, a hat will be bad for the lighting at the junket. Don't do it.
Oh, that would have been pretty.
That would have been huge for my Instagram. That would have done numbers for me.
That's almost like when Post Malone was going to come to.
Oh no way!
I had to put Post Malone +6 on the door for an extortion show, and then he's a lovely guy, but his photographer rocked up in head to toe speed merch and was like, sorry man, Posty couldn't make it. I was like, well, at least you got in.
Good to have you here, mate. Where's the +6?
Yeah.
I'll get it into some pics before the end of the year.
Yeah. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it. What do you got, Ben?
I don't know I guess, when are we putting this out?
Who knows?
I'm trying to put together a filming for my special Hammerhead, but still working on that. Venue pending. I'm trying to figure out the best spot to do. I was like trying to find something a bit different, and you're like trying to go a different way with it, and you're like, nah, I should just stick with what works.
What I know.
Like a venue that's set up for it, rather than me trying to get some ragtag group
500% harder. Pretty much the same
put
result.
all these barriers in place for myself. Just you know where to find me. How about you, Aaron?
Probably by the time this comes out, the only thing really to talk about will be the Speed Christmas show.
Dude, sick.
Yeah, which would be really cool.
That'll be fun.
So yeah, if by the time this comes out it hasn't sold out, buy a fucking ticket, and I'll see you on the Manning Bar beer garden for the worst chat you've ever heard after I've had 13 beers and played Tower of Violence.
I'm still sussing what I'm doing at that time of year, but I'm hoping I can come. It's going to be weird because I did Sydney Comedy Festival at Manning Bar in this side room that's near there. And it was like one of the worst weeks of my fucking life. Like, it was atrocious. It was terrible. And I've got to reclaim that venue.
Yeah.
Yes.
You got to take it back. I mean, I was telling someone last night, I think the last time I was at Manning Bar maybe was when Earth Crisis came here for the first time, and I moshed while they were playing, a straight edge anthem with a pint, and someone knocked it out of my hand, and another friend of mine who is straight edge grabbed that person around the throat and made them buy me another beer.
Let's recreate that.
Let's make that happen at Christmas.
But thank you again, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, boys. What a pleasure.
Cheers.
Bye.